This is Jeff Eichner of Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, United States of America. Listen to the International Radio Report every Sunday morning at 10:30 on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is Sunday, March the 26th, 2023. We thank you for tuning into our show. My name is Sheldon. I am here with Jill. We are here with you every Sunday morning with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. Our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. We're live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group, International Radio Report, we welcome Brian and Frake, bringing us to 906 members. You can join the group by going to Facebook, search for International Radio Report, and join up with everyone else in the group. Our YouTube channel is available for you to listen to the show at your convenience. It is youtube.com/@International Radio Report or @IRR. We have 802 subscribers there. You can subscribe and get notified every time the new show is posted up there. We'll have some more news for you in the show a bit later about another way you can go and check out our program online as well. First off, though, it is the last day of the CKUT funding drive for 2023. If you would like to call in and make a pledge for the funding drive, it is 514-907-9424 to call in the pledge. The funding drive runs until this evening on Sunday, March the 26th. And the goal is $45,000 for this year. As we're recording our show on Friday, we're just at about $22,500, so still quite a ways to go, but you still have plenty of time to get your pledge in. Any amount is appreciated, no matter how large or how small. It's all goes into the big pot and helps keep CKUT on the air and helps keep our radio show going. We would like to thank those who have contributed to our show so far. We have Ron Cesarek, Ron Hunsicker, Brent Johnson, Ricky Lung, Mario Torino, John Fisher, Eric Cottrell, Sarah Mangle, and Brian Penny, and ourselves, of course.
Yeah.
But we'll thank ourselves. We always support the station by doing that as well. So you can do it online if you like. Go to ckut.ca and you'll see the little donate button. You can click on that and follow all the instructions there. You can use your credit card or you can send in a check. And you can even come down to the radio station if you're in Montreal and drop off your pledge there and pick up one of the prizes that are available for making a pledge. And every pledge you make goes into an entry for the grand prize draws, which you'll see all of that listed out on the website. So Gilles is here with his brand new CKUT t-shirt. Hold it up to the radio so people can see it. There it is.
Take a good look. Take a good look.
Yeah, take a good look. And pretty neat. They've got that. They've got tote bags. They've got a lot of other things available for you to choose from. So again, the phone number is 514-907-9424 if you'd like to call in your pledge. And you can indicate that you want your pledge posted against our radio show. But we encourage you, if you want to support other shows on the station as well, you can make separate pledges for that as well. So you have until this evening, March the 26th, to get your pledge in. If you don't make it by then, though, you can pledge to CKUT anytime you like. Whatever you can spare really helps the station keep going. And we thank all of you who've taken the time to make your pledge in response to our request.
Yep, thank you, everyone. And don't forget, without community radio like CKUT, there would not be a show like this. It wouldn't exist anywhere because no regular, commercial radio stations would like to have a show like this on the air. So there's a new way that you can access our shows. We, have added the YouTube channel in recent years, and there's something called the Internet Archive. So the International Radio Report show will now be on the Internet Archive. This is courtesy of Kay Savitz, curator of the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications. So the DLARC is a project of the Internet Archive. It's a not-for-profit online library, best known for the Wayback Machine, DLARC is growing to be massive online library of past and present of ham radio, shortwave, and related communications. It is funded by a grant from Amateur Radio Digital Communications. Editions of the International Radio Report are now posted on the International Radio Report archive there. So we'll post the link. It's on archive.org. But if you search on the archive.org website for International Radio Report, you'll find them popping up. There's 472 shows. We've got all the shows from 2000 to 2005, roughly. So if you want to listen to what it sounded like way back. And, of course, we have the past 3 years of shows also archived there. So lots of content. And so you can download them and listen to them as a podcast. Go back in time. You missed a show. You missed an older show that there's something interesting about it. There's eventually going to be transcripts also of the shows that are going to be done, apparently automatically by their software. So there's going to be a lot of details of that. It's going to be searchable for the text. So if you search for specific, item that we talked about, you'll be able to eventually have that also. So do take a listen. There's a lot of shows there, and also it'll be a new way to actually get the shows, as every new show will be archived there automatically.
We have a lot of older shows in that too that are more or less all on cassette. They need to be digitized in order to get them up into the archive as well. The show, for those that don't know, has been around since 1987 when CKUT went on the air on 90.3. So we need to work on some of those older shows. Some of them really have some historical information in them.
Oh, yeah.
Really interesting shortwave broadcasts that happened at very important times in history, and would be great to get all of those up there. So we will do our best to get more of those shows into a digital format so they can be added to the archive. Our next story is from Radio Inc., and it is about some upcoming layoffs looming at ESPN. The headline is "No Sacred Cows" as ESPN layoffs loom. For the next few weeks, Disney Corporation will not be the happiest place on earth, as the media giant intends to cut as many as 7,000 jobs across the entire company, including ESPN Radio. The layoffs were foreshadowed by CEO Bob Iger's restructuring comments in February. On Monday's Now Mercy, his Odyssey podcast, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith alluded to the fact that no position is safe. For all I know, I might be one of them. Now I doubt that, but it's possible. No one knows, Smith said. That grim news was seemingly confirmed in a report by the New York Post, which says there will be no sacred cows when the layoffs are announced. This includes A-list air talent and top executives across the radio and TV divisions. The Post says that the cuts should be finalized within the next 6 weeks. 7,000 jobs across the Disney network is a pretty substantial number.
Definitely. It doesn't look good. And once again, a lot of these big corporations are trying to save money, and up to what extent, that hurts the programming and the quality of what we actually get in radio programming in general. So it's really sad to see all of that going on.
The ESPN radio, they do have a lot of syndicated programming that appears on all of their stations across North America. If some of those major people are cut, I'm not sure what they'll be filling the airtime with, whether they'll keep, just the skeleton crew across the radio network. Some of it, of course, is live sports broadcasts, so that, if you've got play-by-play people and what have you, that's not a real problem. But the shows themselves that are syndicated, the talk shows, sports talk shows, etc., those are the ones that could suffer. Whether it'll be support staff or, technical people, what have you, it's hard to say. But I think at 7,000 people, that's going to touch a lot of the different areas of both the ESPN television and radio networks.
In our next story, we have WABC syndicating Sinatra. This is via Radio Inc. Red Apple Audio Networks has announced the national syndication of 77 WABC's Sundays with Sinatra, hosted by Joe Piscopo. The former member of the Saturday Night Live cast has hosted the Sinatra family-sanctioned 2-hour show each week for just over a year. "You can't get this anywhere else," said the owner of Red Apple Media, which includes the Red Apple Audio Networks and WABC Radio. "We broke away from the standard of 24/7 news and talk and put music on 77 WABC Saturday and Sunday nights. Listeners want a break. They want some fun. Why should they go somewhere else to get it? Our weekend numbers have skyrocketed." Piscopo commented, "The joy I get from playing Sinatra's song on 77 WABC is immeasurable. Sinatra's music is timeless. I'm excited about bringing Sundays with Sinatra to radio stations across America." So this is kind of cool. It is interesting because when they did switch to that format where they had also some music, I remember tuning 77 or 770 kilohertz, being surprised to hear music at first, as it was really mostly 24-hour news before. But I think the idea is not bad, having a break from news.
Yeah, they've been running a lot of programming, bringing back old DJs. They have had Cousin Brucey, who was one of the famous DJs on WABC for a very long time, doing sort of a pop music show. What's interesting is this kind of music was normally heard originally on AM radio.
Yep.
It had that certain sound to it. So if you listen to WABC on the weekend evenings, it's really kind of a flashback of hearing these old-time announcers, the pop music, top 40 music, basically. And then if Sunday evenings you tune in, you can sort of sit back and listen to the popular standards with Sinatra. This format's not exclusive to WABC either, the Sinatra programming.
Yeah.
There's Sinatra programs with variations of that name on a number of different stations. There's a Simply Sinatra channel that's programmed by Frank Sinatra's daughter, Nancy Sinatra, that's on Sirius XM. And there's some other shows that are out there that are very similar to that, where they feature not just Sinatra music, but similar styles of music, what they call American popular standards. Even those couple albums that Rod Stewart did, doing those old pop standards,
Yep.
is the type of music that you're going to hear on those programs. So check out WABC if you can hear them in your area. I think they're online as well. You can find them on 770 AM out of New York City.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, the sun itself was rather quiet. We didn't have too much activity. There's a few sunspot groups. What major thing happened this week, though, is, first of all, we had one geomagnetic storm come from a coronal mass ejection earlier this week. But the really big one is actually subsiding as we were recording the show. On Thursday evening to Friday, there was a severe G4 category geomagnetic storm. Auroras were visible at some point up to Mexico, which is very, very far south. So tells you how strong that was. The storm was actually a surprise. Nobody was expecting anything special happening, and we get this really big geomagnetic storm. The categories for geomagnetic storms go from G1 to G5. G5 is the biggest. So G4 is a pretty big storm. Impacted radio communications quite a lot. So the week ahead, what's going to happen? We have quieter conditions, hopefully. Sunspot number 73. Solar flux 151 as we're recording, so that's pretty good numbers. The bands are open up to 10 meters, and propagation has been amazing. Radio New Zealand, man, blasting on 15720. And if you want to take part of it, well, you got to turn on a radio and listen.
Hello, I'm Saul Brody from Philadelphia, PA, USA. You're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
And one thing you can spend the rest of your Sunday listening to is the WPX contest that's going on the ham band.
Yeah.
So check that out. You've got until 23:59 Zulu today to see what interesting stations are on the air out there. You had some pretty good catches already leading up to the contest.
Oh yeah, some great catches. I've got Gabon. I've got Guinea. I've got Cape Verde, and there's tons of others that are there from everywhere. One that I've been chasing, Norfolk Island, that also was an interesting one. I could hear it, but I haven't yet made contact. But lots of exotic stuff to listen to out there. Tune around and put your radio in single sideband mode, and you're going to hear a lot of stations. You can go to QRZ.com or QRZCQ.com to search for the call signs, learn a little more where they're located. Some have great pictures also of where they are.
Yeah, we mentioned this, the Sable Island, the expedition that's underway. We talked about it last week. They are out there, but they seem to be having quite a bit of difficulty with the weather and getting the antennas installed properly. Some of their equipment has not been working the way they'd like it to. So they are still out there. So check for Charlie Yankee 0 Sierra for their station from Sable Island off the east coast of Canada. And maybe you'll be able to hear them as well.
Yeah, I was able to make contact on FT8 the first day that they were transmitting on 30 meters. The day after, they had a very weird, distorted signal. I don't know what was happening. A lot of people are waiting for their voice single sideband. They had mentioned they would do that. They haven't done it yet. They're kind of staying into Morse code, CW, and FT8 only. So hopefully they'll expand that to some other modes of communications also. But do try it, and definitely something interesting to get your hands on if you're a ham, and chase them around if you're a shortwave listener.
Our next story is focused on the continuing battle going on between Congress and the car manufacturers and the future of AM radios in new electric cars. We have a development by Paul McLean from Radio World. Congressman says, make AM a mandatory car safety feature. A congressman from New Jersey wants the government to add AM radio to the list of safety equipment that car makers must include in their vehicles. Representative Josh Gottheimer has called on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to add AM radio to the federal motor vehicle safety standards to require that all automakers, including EV manufacturers, include AM radio as a stock feature in their vehicles. Federal motor vehicle safety standards are the minimum safety standards that a manufacturer must meet when making a vehicle, including requirements related to airbags, brakes, seat belts, tires, controls, and displays. The National Association of Broadcasters welcomed his efforts. Gottheimer, a Democrat who represents a district along the state's northern border, held a news event next to a Tesla dealership in Paramus, New Jersey, along with New Jersey Broadcasters Association Executive Director Jordan Walton. The congressman said he is writing to the major electric vehicle makers, including Tesla, urging them to reconsider their decision to discontinue AM radio in their cars and trucks and to include the public safety tool as a stock feature. He cited AM radio's role during the aftermath of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and Hurricane Sandy as examples. He also said he wants to ensure that AM stations remain safe and intact during national emergencies through federal investment in backup power, hardening antennas and towers, and supporting key communications equipment for AM radio stations. Major car maker Ford recently signaled that it has plans to phase out AM in most of its vehicles, not just EVs. Other car makers vary widely in their comments about AM in electric and other vehicles. Tesla has said that electronic noise causes severe disruption to AM radio transmissions that makes the signal reception unstable and unusable. I would think that if Elon Musk had enough money to buy Twitter and send rockets to space, he could afford to include AM radio in his Teslas, Gottheimer said in his announcement. Instead, Elon Musk and Tesla and other car manufacturers are putting public safety and emergency response at risk. When the cell phone runs out, the internet gets cut off, or the television doesn't work because of no electricity or power to your house, you can still turn on your AM radio.
Definitely something interesting here. Hopefully that could have an impact on keeping AM. The problem probably is that, the car makers don't want to put the money necessary to shield everything so that AM radios actually work again. It's, it changed from the past. Remember, in the past, there was these regulations where, you had to create devices and electronic devices that did not exceed a certain level of interference. They had standards. And somehow today, all of that has gone away. And, oh, well, doesn't matter. If we make too much noise, let's just remove AM radio.
Yeah, I think it's really come down to an issue of money. It's going to cost them more to build a radio that's properly shielded to block out the interference coming from the vehicle itself.
Yep.
And they just don't want to be bothered with that. And I guess they're looking at the numbers and saying, well, not that many people are listening to AM anyways. A lot of the stations are moving to FM. So let's just forget about the AM radio. So we'll see if any government intervention helps here. It's certainly an interesting bill that the congressman has put through. Whether it gets any further, we'll have to just wait and see.
In our next news, Republican launches effort to yank federal funding of public radio and TV. This is via Inside Radio. Public radio newsrooms have filled the gap in many local markets as commercial radio operators have struggled to make the economics of news operations work. But Texas Republican Ronnie Jackson says that those stations are airing amounts to taxpayer-funded fake news, and he has introduced a bill that would prohibit the government from directing financial support to both affiliates of NPR and public television's public broadcasting service, PBS. The proposed legislation, which has been titled the No Partisan Radio and Partisan Broadcasting Services Act, or the NPR and PBS Act, says federal funding could not be used to purchase programming or payment of dues for either one of the national networks. When NPR and PBS were established by Congress, it was with the notion that their content would remain unbiased and benefit every American. However, it is obvious that NPR and PBS have abandoned their founding principles, Jackson said. For decades, radical Democrats have siphoned hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS under the guise of serving the public, despite sharing all the same propaganda of any other radical left corporate news outlet. Taxpayers should not be forced to support biased media like NPR and PBS against their will. Jackson's bill currently has no co-sponsors. It also does not have a companion bill in the Senate. It will likely also face an uphill battle if prior attempts to cut off public radio and television funding are any indication. But despite the talk about cutting federal funding, CPB funding has remained in the budget. President Biden's latest budget proposal, released this month, includes more money for public media. The latest budget proposal includes $575 million for the Corporation for Public Broadcasters in the 2026 fiscal year. That is $40 million more than what was included in the 2025 budget. Unlike most of what Congress spends, the CPB budget has a long lead time to allow broadcasters to plan their programming based on the amount of money they will have. If approved, CPB's latest advance appropriation would include $60 million for the public broadcasting interconnection system and infrastructure in the 2024 fiscal year. The system disseminates content across the public media system, including public safety and alerting messages. That's the continuing battle of what someone thinks is fake news or not compared to others. And public broadcasting, I think, is one of the most important services to maintain. It is, I listen to a lot here in Canada from the WVPS in Burlington, Vermont. And I can tell you that it's great programming. It's programming that is educational and also, helps give another viewpoint, whether you agree with it or not. It has to be maintained. And they are having a hard time getting funding. They have funding drives like CKUT also. So a lot of the money comes from the public. And I'm sure that they're not, pleased with these recommendations of just removing all the federal funding going to them. which would be very, very sad and have a very deep impact on the future of public radio.
Yeah, I think the way the money, like it sounds like an awful lot of money that's allocated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but that then filters down to all the various individual stations and networks throughout the states and the cities across the country. I know Vermont Public Radio, Vermont Television, as you said, we see the funding drives here. We pick up those border stations, and they are always looking to supplement their budgets. So it's bigger cities in bigger metropolises, I guess, get a little more money than some of the smaller stations. So it still is really important for them to work on these funding drives. So even though the dollar amount total across the board is quite high, some stations benefit more from that than others. So, but the quality of the programming is pretty much the same across the board.
Yep.
As you said, it's pretty high quality and it's listened to by a lot of people. I guess there'll be a big debate of how you determine what fake news is.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
Fake news to one is real news to another. So how they'll try to get that bill through, like they say in the story, he doesn't really have any support for that bill at this point in time, and I somehow kind of doubt that he will.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
We have 3 contests coming up in the following weekend. We have the Penn Ohio DX Society Club, the PSK 31 Flavors Contest, 1000 Zulu April 1st to 0400 Zulu April the 2nd. It's organized by the Penn Ohio DX Society Club, and the purpose is to work as many stations as possible using 6 different modes of PSK. It's 20-meter band only, and you can work each station only once, and all contacts must be two-way. So there are a whole bunch of different modes. We'll put up the links to the contest rules, and it'll explain all the different wide, narrow, and very wide bandwidths used for various modes of PSK.
There's the Louisiana QSO Party, 1400 Zulu April 1st to 02 Zulu April 2nd, organized by the Louisiana Contest Club, 160 through 2 meters, no work bands. It's phone, CW, and digital.
And the last one is a contest that was actually canceled last year due to the invasion of Ukraine, in support of Ukraine. It's the organized by the Polish Amateur Radio Union. It's the SPDX contest, 1500 Zulu April 1st to 1500 Zulu April the 2nd. It's 160 through 10 meters, no work bands, CW and SSB. And the contest organizers have put a special note. Due to current events, the organizers have decided to exclude stations from Russia and Belarus from participation in the SPDX contest 2023. So that might make things a little tricky on the bands during that contest.
Yeah, definitely.
With that decision being made, but at least they decided to get the contest up and running again this year. Anyways, check it out. There should be a lot of Polish stations, and there are quite a lot of hams in Poland. We hear them on the bands quite regularly, so check that out.
So we are out of time.
We thank you for tuning in. Do not forget the CKUT funding drive. We appreciate your input. Any pledge is greatly appreciated. You have until this evening, Sunday evening, to get in your pledge. You can call it in at 514-907-9424, or you can go to ckut.ca, click on the donate button, and fill in the form. Don't forget to tag the donation to our show if you like. We would appreciate that. And we'll have the results of the funding drive for you on next week's program. So that will do it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back again next Sunday with our next edition of the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM. And again, thank you for your support.
Thank you, and bye-bye.